Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you may be in this crazy world of cybersecurity. You okay, Kayla? Can you not hear? Mm, apparently, Kayla is having some audio technical issues this morning. So while we get that worked out, welcome to Criticality Live, presented to you by Secure Nation, where we cut through the noise, challenge assumptions, and we talk honestly about the state of cybersecurity because we are cyber unfiltered. Now is here where I would normally ask Kayla if she had anything that she did fun over the Memorial Day weekend, but clearly she is
Oh,
having
I'm here.
technical gremlins.
Can
Oh,
you hear
look, there she is.
me?
I can.
Yeah, I don't know what the heck just happened. My headphones, I think, just went out. Rained all weekend in New England, so didn't do much. Went to my kid's soccer game. How was your weekend?
It rained here too, down in Louisiana, so stayed inside, but nevertheless, any day off from work is a good day. Drove around Shreveport Bossier and helped the wife do Pokemon Go, so
Woo, fun.
nothing too terribly crazy there. So enough from us. Let's get to the real reason why you all are here. You know, Ron Woerner builds hackers, not criminals, not script kiddies, actual thinkers and problem solvers, harkening back to the MIT definition of a hacker. The people who see around the corner before the attacker even gets there. He's a veteran, a CISO, a former Forrester advisor, an educator, a TEDx speaker, a mentor. Ron has spent his entire career proving that cybersecurity doesn't fail when we lack tools. It fails because we lack trained judgment under pressure. So, Ron, welcome to Criticality Live.
Great to be here. Hello, Josh, and hello, Kayla.
How you doing?
Welcome to the show. So,
Thank you.
before we get to your big title stack and before you were the trusted advisor, I want to kind of go back to where the wiring showed up because cybersecurity people rarely are normal people who found normal careers. You know, most of us were breaking assumptions long before someone gave us a shiny badge or a budget or a framework that we had to follow. So I kind of want to dive into how did you get here? You know, what was your origin story? So you've kind of described hacking as a creative problem solving.
Mhm.
When did you first realize your brain worked that way and that you were wired to question how systems work, take things apart, you know, take apart the Rubik's Cube and put it back together, so to speak?
Exactly. Well, back in the day when computers were just rolling out PCs, and we're going back a few decades now, in order to play video games, you needed to program them yourself. I don't know if anyone remembers the old Byte magazines that were that thick and came
Yep.
with all different programs, and you would type them in. I was with the TRS 80 color computer, but also Commodore back in the day, and of course, early days. I've always been curious about electronics and technology. So I had the opportunity to go to college for it. The Air Force was so kind, gave me a 4-year scholarship to study computer science at Michigan State. So I did that. Then I went into the military and I was an intelligence officer. Something I realized, and Josh, I'll be curious to hear your thoughts about this, is that you combine intelligence, which is about gathering information and analyzing it and also protecting it, top secret and such, with early days of computers got me really curious. How are we protecting our computers? And then, real quick, when I was a Unix system administrator, I wanted to keep other people off of my servers. So I created checklists to protect them, which then got me into different hacker communities. So, not necessarily non traditional, but definitely an interesting way through the veteran community.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of folks who were Intel community doing traditional intelligence, whether that's, you know, human or emissions intelligence or any one of the other branches of intelligence, find their way into cyber because there seems to be a natural fit. One of my good friends, Carrick, was a humans intelligence specialist and parlayed that into being a world class CISO. So there's kind of that mindset of how do I how do I get things out of people, and then transitioning that to how do I get things out of computers.
Right. And what we're doing now is going back, and I'm really pulling on my previous experience. Now, organizations are finally thinking of data categorization and classification. And it's like, I've been doing that for decades because when you are given a top secret document, you know what it is and how to protect it. There are very specific rules. Now, organizations are trying to figure that out, particularly with the advent of more data and, of course, with AI.
Yeah, and to your point, classified information is that it's classified because it's well marked, like multiple times on every page, top, bottom. You got the uh, watermark across the back. You know what the data is because somebody has gone through the work to identify that. And to your point, we're just now getting to that in the business side of the house because largely it's just been data. Does it matter if it's a trade secret or not? Did I label it trade secret? I'm like, a lot of times that didn't occur until just recently with the advent of all these data aggregation tools.
Exactly. It's 10 p.m. Do you know where your data is?
My kids don't think those existed. I'm like, I grew up with that. I remember very distinctly watching that growing up. To be a free range kid again. So you've spent a lot of your career teaching and mentoring. So when did you realize you did not just want to do the cybersecurity stuff? I say the fidgeting with the widgets, if you will, but you also wanted to build other people into cybersecurity professionals and kind of usher them into your passion.
So my dad was a teacher. Each of my uncles were teachers. So it's kind of in my blood. Also, being an intelligence officer, one of the things you're taught early on is how to brief others, how to brief generals, how to explain things in simple terms so those who are high up the food chain can understand what the heck you're talking about. I would often have to demonstrate technical systems to brass, and just got into how do I convey and communicate and then connect with that audience. I had the opportunity early on in my career to give presentations at multiple conferences, and then a university here in Nebraska, no, not University of Nebraska, it's called Bellevue University. I was friends with the college dean. He's like, hey, Ron, have you thought about teaching? And I'm like, sure, why not? And then just found I enjoy it, that connection with people. One of the fascinating things, and I know, Josh, you see this, and I'm sure you do too, Kayla, watching the light bulb go off when that idea finally catches. And if it's happened to you, I love this when it happens to me. Someone comes back up to you multiple years later and says, thank you for helping me. Sometimes I'm like, that's awesome. And I don't always remember, but that's okay. Just getting me with the age.
Oh,
But that's why I do it, is for those aha moments, knowing they are doing something great in the world.
oh, it's always a great moment when you bump into somebody years down the road and they go, you don't understand how much this thing that you did helped me do this other thing. And I'm like, I recognize your face, but I could not say your name if you paid me right now.
Right?
But it's wild the ripple effect that you can have
Mhm.
across the industry by just teaching and mentoring and just being a decent human being.
Mhm.
When I was at RSAC this year, I had a guy that I worked with in the military, you know, yell out from across the street, across from the north side to the south side of Moscone, "Hey, Sergeant Copeland!" And I kind of had that Obi-Wan Kenobi moment where it's like, that's a name I haven't heard in a long time. And I turned around, it was one of the guys I worked with. He's like, dude, when I got out, I started following your stuff. It was great. A
Mhm.
lot of the things that you've talked about are things that I'm doing now. And I was like, this is like absolutely wild that, this part of my life from, at that point, I had worked with him like 20 years ago. and he's in cybersecurity now. He was a network engineer guy, and he's doing all these great things. And he felt the need to holler across the street at RSA just to say thank you for, the stuff that I'm doing was absolutely mind blowing.
And that's one of the great things about RSAC and the conferences. Actually, James McQuiggan, if you know, he's just a fantastic human being out of Florida. Had a poll on LinkedIn, what's your favorite part of a conference? And it's always that lobby con or that, right around the Moscone Center where you have those experiences. I did that with Michael Farnham. We passed each other on the street and they're like, wait, I know you. And it's just a great opportunity. And also what I encourage folks to do, so if you are new to cybersecurity, and I've never had the fear, but I will go up to the presenters and just talk to them. You want to know something? They're human too. And they're actually really cool. And that, I think, is how we met. Kayla was probably at RSAC, and when you presented it, what was it, in 24 and 25? Just getting up to meet people. They're really awesome.
Yeah, it does. It calms like your post-presentation nerves as well. When someone comes up to you and you're like, oh, okay, I wasn't terrible. So it works both ways.
Yeah. Well, that's the idea too, knowing you've just connected with just a few folks. Sometimes, like at RSAC or the big ones, you're like, oh, I got to connect with 500. But if you've known you've made a difference in just a few people's lives, then to me, that's really the difference. It's not always the quantity, but the quality, whether it's social media, teaching, conferences. And that's how we change our industry one step at a time, one person at a time, is through these connections.
Yeah.
It's one of those things. I always refer to like the big conferences as family reunions, because there are folks that, you interact with online, all the time, but you see them one, maybe two times a year. And it's just great to actually meet these people that you've developed these relationships with and actually go, oh my God, you're a real person. Like you're not just, a chatbot avatar that's putting stuff out.
Mm-hmm.
It's definitely creates more of that human connection in a field where we're so much, everything's behind a screen.
Yes. And it's not that hard to make those human connections. This is, again, where I encourage folks, is whether it's through LinkedIn or through this YouTube or other communities, is be bold, reach out, use your social engineering skills. How to positively influence others. And this gets into a little bit more of that hacking, difference between influence and manipulation. But there's a lot of positive with this. You boost their ego a little bit. Hey, I saw your post about going to Ireland. That must have been a great trip. And then Joshua, you got nominated for Military Veteran Advocate of the Year, which is, just finding those little connection points, I've learned, make a big difference.
Yeah, it absolutely does. And, I know I appreciate it. And I always try to reciprocate because I'm terrible. I have such a bad memory. Like whatever it is, I can remember a face, but I don't remember a name or vice versa. It's never one thing or the other. And I think you're right. Like if you can pull on some of those threads a little bit and make someone feel that connection, you're going to have a lasting experience with them.
Even for just real quick for this chat, sorry, I'm reading the chat as we're doing this. Even those who are posting, yes, we are live.
Yeah.
So if you have questions, just letting people feel like they're being seen. No, I'm sorry, I cut you off.
Oh, no problem at all. I think that's really important. I did not notice that. So thank you for catching that.
Certainly. So as far as learning hacking skills, the definition does come from, what's his name? Raymond wrote, the Hacker's Lexicon 25 years ago. I remember his website, catb.org. You can look at the original definition of hacker, which has been around for decades and decades. It's just being curious on how things work and then finding unique ways to solve problems. It's not always about illegally manipulating computer programs, although that's occasionally part of the definition. It's just life hacking now continues to be a big thing, but just having that curiosity, why does this work the way it works? And then on the cyber side, how can I break it in a very safe way? And just be careful as you're breaking things. Break yourself first, break your own systems first. Always have to have that caveat. And if you're not sure, hands off. Don't try
So
to.
that is so important because, so Josh, you just posted today, and I didn't get a chance to text you yet about it, but Josh just posted, I think this morning, about having a Raspberry Pi. So I came into my role as CISO through the GRC path. And I've talked about it before. So I don't have that hands-on technology piece, but that's the second time today that someone has mentioned like going and breaking into your own thing. So now I feel obligated to purchase a Raspberry Pi and follow Josh's posts on LinkedIn to figure out what I'm doing. And if anybody has any advice on how to do that, like any fun things I should be doing, yeah, tutorials I should watch, because I'll do that. I think it's because you're right, it's important because I've been told, like, oh, how can we listen to you? You've never built this. You've never written a line of code. I'm like, yeah, but I know the risk side. I can work, like my brain can kind of go around it. But now I'm going to get my hands dirty. So I'm going to become a double-edged sword. So be careful.
Yeah. Quick shout out to my friend Madeline from the Netherlands. Just saw her post. She and I work together at Forrester. But regarding building your own home lab, and I just saw your post as well. Learn Linux. Getting comfortable with a command prompt is so important. Realizing, and this is a great opportunity where, again, if you break it, you just reinstall it. Wonderful thing. And it's a very low cost way to get into, cybersecurity, get into the technology. I worked with a summer camp with kids, and we actually had a grant, gave each of the kids a Raspberry Pi, a keyboard, and a mouse, because that's all they needed. As long as they had an HDMI port on a TV, then they had a monitor. And so for like, $120, they would have their own experimental system where they learn how to install the operating system, partition a drive, experiment with the different tools and a different type of operating system. And again, it's a very low cost, low risk way to learn. And I'm curious, Josh, what else do you recommend for folks with a home lab?
I love Raspberry Pis because you can do a lot with them. You can do a lot of different things with them. To your point, they are low cost. You can get one with an enclosure for like $150 on Amazon. For Kayla, I'd recommend that you start with Pi-hole. Link is in the chat. And it's a great way to figure out how many things are going out and calling ads in your environment. It's super easy. Tutorials are great. You can do things like put a sim on it and start logging all the stuff in your environment, in your home environment. So you can truly understand, oh my God, if I log everything and I try to actually look at that, it's completely overwhelming. How do you tune alerts? How do you do baselines? You're out in the world, Kayla and I and Ron, we all travel a lot. I have, Tailsail installed on mine so I can VPN back to my home network and use that as my environment rather than, whatever the random hotel Wi-Fi is that's open to everybody and their grandmother. There's so many different things you can do. And, right back here over my shoulder is the arcade cabinet I built that's running pretty much every retro video game from the 3 different versions of Atari, NES, Super NES, Sega. I think Shinobi's what's on the screen right now, but you can do a lot of really cool things and it's not hard. There's tons of tutorials out there. You can run multiple things on a single Raspberry Pi. It's a great tool to just cut your teeth on.
Practice.
Using Linux.
ABC, always be curious. But again, if you break it, and this is what I would encourage, working with high school students, and younger university students, I dare you to break it. And they're like, and they want to pick it up and throw it. Don't like that. There's really, if you do type something and it doesn't work anymore, well, you just reinstall, restart. You learn that skill of how to safely break things, which is a great hacking skill. And you break your own stuff first. A couple of other things points I want to make. One, different tools you should experiment with. Of course, Nmap. I mean, how long has Nmap been around? Decades, decades.
Yeah.
Still a great tool. What is all the IoT on my home network? Yeah. Who actually and what is using my home network? Practice with Wireshark to learn about networking. As I'm training those, maybe taking CISSP courses. Great way to see the OSI 7-layer model, the TCP/IP three-way handshake. Right there in black and white, if you will, with Wireshark, and it's free. Ooh, I love free. And if you know of other tools, please throw them in the chat, or curious to hear from others. And then I want to address what Innocent put about what happens when you find a vulnerability. Well, if you see something, say something. You've done the ethical disclosure, and I'm always, how many times, Kayla and Josh, have you found something and you let someone know, you don't know if they are responding or not, but at least you've done the informed part of it, showing, and again, show your work. It's not just throwing FUD at folks. I really am trying to help you. Because that's, again, how we're going to help each other overcome a lot of the challenges. I'm curious to hear your thoughts, though, either with what else to install on a Raspberry Pi, or if you see something, say something.
Well, it's interesting because I read that from Innocence as well. And being a CISO and having received these before, I would say if you're going to submit something, make sure that you search their website, their publicly facing website, for a vulnerability disclosure program. They usually have forms and certain very, very particular things that you have to do to submit a vulnerability that you found. That way, they can't deny it by saying, oh, well, you didn't fill out this form the particular way, you didn't sign here, dot your I's, cross your T's, and then deny you potentially a fee. Because some of these vulnerability management programs will offer you money if you can find something that is out there. So I would say, Innocent, make sure that you're checking those websites and filling out the forms and doing exactly what they say. Because there are so many times when our legal team would receive something previously and they'd say, nope, they didn't fill out the form, but hey, now we know this thing is going to get, and we're going to go and fix it. So it's a loophole. It's not great. It's corporations, they do those things. So I would say make sure when you find something that you just double check for that.
Well, it's like everything else. Do your homework around it. Has it already been disclosed? Check CVEs.
Yeah, absolutely.
It may already be a known entity. Sometimes that's also, you can work with the groups that develop the national vulnerability databases, whether here in the States or across the globe. They may already have it noted that it's a vulnerability. And they're just working through the channels. So it's not always just addressing the particular organization whose software. Check GitHub, because sometimes what we found, it's third, fourth party risks. So it could be just they grabbed a procedure and it just appears to be within this one entity, but it really has a root cause further down the line. This is where SBOMs may help. Fingers crossed.
Yeah, and to Ron's point, if you're not getting traction with the actual organization that's you're trying to report, there are other organizations that you can report to that will run the flag up and say this is a vulnerability, and assign that CVSS score to it based off of their independent research, validating the thing that you submitted, and then hopefully once it's put out in that public domain, the vendor will actually address the issue.
Exactly. And then you're working with other vulnerability researchers too to help validate it. So you're not doing it alone. You're part of, and the idea going back to the day of the hacker forums, being part of the larger community. And that's, again, how we move this forward. I'm a big proponent of building communities. Being a remote worker, it can feel like you're alone on an island, but realizing there are multiple groups you can reach out to, whether it's through ISSA, ISACA, ISC2, InfraGard, so many, or I'm part of the veterans community.
So I want to talk a little bit about your Hacker Wanted TED Talk. So Was that just a personal conviction behind the message, or did you feel it was something that the industry was just getting wrong about hackers and talent and curiosity?
Yes and yes. I'm a hacker, completely ethical, looking for other hackers, both of the positive type and the malicious actors, but we need to continue to build our workforce. We need to build the better knowledge base within education. And even though I recorded that back in 2019, it's still very applicable today. I'm working with multiple high school groups trying to encourage young folks because, so many will say, well, they know the technology. I'm holding up my phone. It's like they know how to use it, but do they really know how it works under the covers? And many times they don't. So, how do they get that education? What I've learned as well, and this continues to be true within our educational system, at least here in the United States, and I suspect worldwide, a lot of the teachers who have to teach technology, they have not really done it. If you don't get paid very much as an educator, particularly K through 12. So if you're going to be in information technology, you tend to go where you're going to be paid a lot more. And I've encountered multiple school systems where the teachers, not always true, there's some fantastic computer science teachers, but they may not have the experience.
Mhm.
So I encourage folks, like if you're looking for more CBEs, you have a certification, you can go to your local schools and volunteer. And that counts towards your CBEs. It's not just you taking a class, because what I've learned teaching others, oh my gosh, that really helps my knowledge.
Oh, I absolutely agree. The questions I get asked, and I go, okay, let me think about that for a second. Never looked at it from that angle.
Yeah.
Let me get back to you.
Yeah.
You
Okay,
explored
here's
together.
the answer.
Yep.
But it made me think
Mhm.
because, like anything else, I'm a product of my education and my experience. That is not a
Mhm.
universal, thing. I can only tell you what I know based off of what I know.
Mhm.
And somebody that comes in from a different background, a different socioeconomic group, somebody that comes in with a different educational background is going to look at the same problem a totally different way. And they're going to see something and it's going to make me think and go,
Mhm.
okay, that's now totally valid. I've never considered that. Now what?
Or the trick I will use in a classroom, if I don't have the answer right away, I'll say, "Oh, that's a fantastic question. Why don't you tell me what you think the answer is first?"
Yeah.
Yeah. So I social engineer my students. Yeah, it's
All
all
right.
part of the learning process. And I'm curious, since you've both traveled internationally, talked to folks all over, do you ever see there may be, it's almost like there's a language barrier between those who talk tech, the the nerds and the geeks, versus those who may be more business minded or operations minded?
Mhm.
I'm almost sensing like it's multiple, we're speaking different languages.
Go ahead, Josh.
Yeah. Kayla and I actually did a talk about this at RSAC. And it was truly, we have a hard time translating the bits and bytes into dollars and cents
Mhm.
because in business, money and risk are universal languages. The technical part is a very niche version of that. While we're using the same words, they have very different meanings. When I say there's a risk or a vulnerability from a cyber context, that's a very specific
Mhm.
thing, but that word does not mean the same thing to my CFO.
Yep.
When they hear, risk and vulnerability, they're thinking, what does that do to the business? How does that affect our operations? What does that do to our revenue generation process? And being able to translate those two things is a skill I think that largely we've done a really poor job at developing.
So I do have an announcement to make as I'm transitioning my career. I've learned there's actually very little about cyber as a second language. So that's actually what I'm exploring this summer. There's actually only been one, if you go take the academic route. Um, I don't think we need to look at it only from academia or only about finance, but overall. For example, if I say we need to clear our cache in the cloud, some people are going to think it's raining money. Yeah,
Yeah.
because they've lost, and particularly now we're going across languages. Oh, by the way, this is AI is not necessarily going to help with this because it won't grab that context. It might be able to see the spelling, or we need to look at our SAS. Different languages. I'm giving you SAS, Josh. Is that a good thing?
I
Always.
mean, I
Both.
like a little sass.
Yeah. Yeah, that's me. Like, no, but Ron, you make such a good point because I and this is not an endorsement of anybody or any product or anything, but over the weekend, my daughter and I read a book that for kids, she's 9, that Wiz put out about what is cloud security. We got it at Secure World Boston, and it does exactly that. It breaks things down and it talks about like how security folks are superheroes, and it does a lot of the correlation there, and it talks about what all these different things mean in a vernacular that a child can understand. And as I was sitting there reading it with her, and she's trying to fumble through the words and things, like, this is a really great way to, because she never understood what I do, and it was just, I'm like, they need to do more of this. And I don't want to say dumbing it down because I think that's not doing it justice. It's making it accessible.
Breaking it to its raw components.
Yeah.
And Josh, I agree. I don't think we've done a great job educating or training. Where can we learn more? Well, that's why I'm studying English as a second language. And a lot of folks, what? Why? Well, big believer in the road less traveled, but they've been going this path for a very, very long time. I want to substitute English for cyber, and really the process can be very similar. It's really just a process, a system. Whether we're talking about phonetics, how do we phonetically say words, or specific verb tenses, or we're talking about programming languages or network. I mean, we should be taking a similar process towards learning, and I think that will help increase no matter whether we're working with kids, 9-year-olds, teaching them how to be safe and sane online, or their parents who also need to be taught how to be safe and sane online.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a big proponent that if you can't explain a cybersecurity concept to a middle schooler, you don't understand it well enough to be doing anything presenting to a board. And I'm not saying that, boards are the intellectual equivalent of a middle schooler, but they don't have the context. They don't have the colloquial knowledge around cyber to speak that. But if you can explain it to a middle schooler using words and terms they understand, you can pretty much explain it to anybody in a business.
Yeah. So then, do you think that this nomenclature, this language, then is a contributor to why so many CISOs still lead with fear, with those breach headlines, penalties, those crazy scary dashboards that are red and yelling at you? So do you think that that's really the main contributor to those things?
Partly, it's a lot of people lead how they were led. So they were taught, carrot versus the stick. Well, depending on the generation, so many are looking at the stick. And we see that today with compliance. Compliance continues to be a big stick. You don't want to be against DORA or NIS2 in the EU, the different privacy laws here in the United States, or GDPR. CMMC is a big stick. Now within the defense industrial base, I won't be able to get my multi-million-dollar contract, or even if I'm running a cleaning crew. So compliance leads to that fear, and this is a universal, talking to folks worldwide. The idea of taking that risk-based approach, and keep in mind, risk is a 4-letter word, understanding the context though. And let me ask you, we all drive. Have you gone over the speed limit this week?
I have gone within my allowable tolerance.
No judgment here, but
yes, I have. Of course I have.
That's then we admit we're breaking the law, but it was a risk-based decision. I understood the tolerances. I was following traffic. I was still within a safety allowance. We need that same approach of understanding, because some businesses make a risk decision to accept a risk. And if you choose not to decide, you still have made a choice. We just need to encourage that. But it's really This is also why I like to teach social engineering, how to reframe positively rather than feeling like
Mm,
fear is the only way.
yeah.
You know, giving that context as to what if scenarios um, often really helps provide the financial advisors and then sometimes just showing them. One quick story, this probably 10 years ago, but working with a small business and CFO was in the room with the IT person, I think for the first time ever. CFO asked, "So why are we spending so much on the internet?" And the IT guys, "Oh, let me show you where all our folks are going. Facebook, YouTube, not work sites." CFO had a little cow, um, but finally got to be talking with the IT person on how can we solve this. That was a great awakening, and it's just getting people together talking.
So you've taught and mentored lots of cybersecurity professionals from high school students for your cyber patriot stuff all the way through college, and then folks, I consider you one of the mentors. I follow your stuff and read your stuff all the time. So what's a leadership skill that you wish that was taught earlier in cybersecurity careers?
Well, first of all, how to lead, being willing to lead. A lot of folks are fearful that if I am bold, I'm making known risks, but willing to step out and take a leadership position, even within your local community. Great way to gain that experience. And I was kind of pushed early on. I had a fantastic mentor, great leader. He really pushed me to be an active cybersecurity community member, get the experience with the local chapters. Great way to practice outside of the business setting, but you gain that experience by helping others. You can gain those references through the community. So really, it's just being bold, willing to step out and take a leadership position, um, and not worrying so much about the failure, but it's really about the trying. And in a lot of the communities, it's actually, the only way to fail. I've seen this with students too. The only way to fail is to do nothing. Yeah, I'd rather have a student say a completely wrong answer that gives me something to work from than a student who's like, and you're like, "Hello, you there?"
Yeah. Like the lights are on, but nobody's home. I
Right?
think one of the things I tell students all the time is go find a nonprofit you're passionate about, something that you care about. There's probably a nonprofit organization in your area that does that
Yep.
thing.
Yep.
Whether it's you're passionate about dogs, go find
Mhm.
a shelter that is a nonprofit. Ask them,
Yeah.
do you need help with your IT and cybersecurity? Because they have zero budget. They're a
Yep.
nonprofit. They're going to go, why, yes, we do.
Yep.
Please help us. And that allows you to
Yep.
get your hands on real cybersecurity work in real environments to organizations that not only need the help, but things that you care about in the first place. Like
Mhm.
you're taking the intersection of
Great
things
advice.
that you care about and the things that
Mhm.
you want to do professionally.
Yeah.
And you're getting kind of what I call the win-win-win scenario.
Mhm.
They get the work done, you get the experience, and you're doing something you're passionate about. That's a win for me
Yep.
across the board.
And what you can do as well is just ask for that reference,
Yeah.
because that's often the challenge. Well, how do I get a job? Are there even any entry level cybersecurity positions available?
Yeah.
Don't necessarily need to go through that rabbit hole for the next 3 hours. I still say yes because of those small nonprofits, small medium businesses that just need maybe part-time help. They can't afford the high paid, CISO like you, Joshua, or you, Kayla. Yeah. But if you're just going in, working to gain that experience and a lower risk, providing a lot of the guidance to them because they maybe not even know where to start and may not even know basics of cyber hygiene. Lots of opportunities.
And to your point, having the groups like ISACA or ISC Squared chapters in my area, we have a Tech by 20 because we're on the I-20 corridor. Down in New Orleans, they have NOLASEC, we have BRSEC.
Yeah.
But any of those groups, you have an entire group of mentors who go, hey, I'm working with this nonprofit. They have this problem. Do you know a fix for this?
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I can guarantee if someone has a fix for it, they'll be like, yeah, totally. This is how you fix a thing. Here, let me help you do that thing.
Yep. Get the experience. And then with those groups as well, they are, I don't know if one I've not heard or who hasn't is not looking for a speaker, particularly new speakers. I'm trying to find others because my local groups, well, Ron, can you speak? And it's like, after a while, we need new voices. So for those who are new, be willing to be that voice. Volunteer to give a talk, even if you're still building it. Ask, will somebody mentor me to give this talk? Yes, because we need new voices, particularly those who are a different demographic than, let's just say, Josh and I. With more of a tan, yeah, or more females, because that definitely we need.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to
Oh,
say
I thought you
something
meant
maybe
more hair.
unpopular. We need more diversity. There, I said it.
Yes, and definitely more hair, Josh. I agree.
Yes, I mean different.
So you've worked across enterprise, government, academia, the community spaces. What does leadership look like at those environments? Is it the same? Is it different? Is there anything that stands out as, I don't want to say superior than the others, but something that you think that's worked better?
Starting in the military, and this is where I see the challenge for those who were in the military, it is very top down. Yes, sir. If an officer tells you to do something, you do it. Don't always question what they're having you to do because you may not have the knowledge, the experience to understand. They'll yell duck, but they know when the bullets are flying and you may not. You don't have that time. So that's a different leadership structure where it is more authoritarian. And there it does work, particularly for those who are learning the ropes, if you will, even across both the officer and the NCO, non-commissioned officer corps. And then when folks move to the private sector, you really do need to understand more of the rules of influence and how to persuade. You can't just, because I've seen folks do it. Oh, we just need to tell everyone to use a 15-character password and we're just going to make them do it. And then you find that chief marketing officer who said, no, I'm not. I've been here for 25 years. You can't make me. I'm going to get an exception. And then you have 14 exceptions. So you learn how to kind of, again, human hack to help them protect themselves better. And then with government, I'm going to change federal versus state. Well, there were a lot of folks within the federal. Unfortunately, we've seen a lot of changes with the U.S. federal, but within the state who have been there for a very long time, they know they have their job security, their pension. So again, you can't just tell them to do it. It's really showing them how to protect themselves.
So let's take that a step further because it's 2026 and you can't have a conversation without bringing up the dreaded two-letter acronym AI. When you're looking at AI, what do you see as the real capabilities right now versus, what's vendor theater and, branding hype?
Oh, yes, and yes. Again, well, it's how you use it. One of the things we've seen universally about it is what is the use case? What problem are we solving with AI? I want to automate my email to take what's coming in and put it into specific folders. That can be done, and that helps us be more efficient. So that is a very good use case. When I use with my students, please use AI to check your grammar. Should be no reason I should see any grammar errors anymore. Just saying. I'll use to help me write emails. That's a use case. Defining what problem we are solving, going back to the vendor, asking them, what problem are you solving? And the problem is not using AI. It's how do we, getting back to risk and finance, how will this save us money? Is one I love asking vendors. We need to define it and it's specific for the organization. Being just very upfront and bold with the vendor community. And then not only what is the initial cost, what are the ongoing costs? because with AI, it needs to be continually matured. It's continually learning. You want to make sure that the permissions stay appropriate throughout the infrastructure with agentic AI, using least agency more than least privilege. Yeah, make sure that it doesn't get out of control. So who's monitoring it? You can't just turn it on, set it and forget it. But it's kind of like buying a boat. People will buy a boat and best day of the life, buying a boat. Second best, selling the boat. People don't realize the costs of
Yeah.
ongoing maintenance with AI. So that's another question to ask. And we could, again, spend the rest of the year talking about this. Let me know if I'm not answering the question.
Oh no, you absolutely are. It comes down to AI has one cost now, but at some point, the subsidies for it are going to stop. And what does that do to your business next? Now that your AI bill is now double or triple what you were paying before.
Yeah.
Go
Oh, go ahead. Oh, well, I was going to say, it reminds me of back in like the early 2010s when everyone offshored to the Asian markets for their call centers. I happened to work at a company that had a very large US call center, actually two. They had one in Canton, Massachusetts and one in College Station, Texas. And they ended up offshoring, I think, to like the Philippines or something like that. And it was great cost savings at first. But then the maintenance of it, the additional overhead that was brought in by customers or clients, I should say, whose customers were calling in wanting to do security due diligence and having all these other things put in place. It ended up not being, plus, I mean, there were some quality control issues as well, but that's, I think, different. But it does start to add up and cause you to then onshore again. So that I see these every 10 years or so, we start to see a new shiny object that may not be all it's cracked up to be.
Wait. Are you saying we need to be explaining cyber history? Because it definitely resembles itself. Because I agree. I had the same conversation 10, 15 years ago about the cloud.
Yeah. I mean, are there cyber historians? Is that a career you have outside of
Those of us who've been doing it for a while, we kind of just end up in that role.
You have to make your own like a cyber history encyclopedia thing.
There, yes, maybe that.
Josh might have one.
I was going to say, there's between all of the different books. Yeah, there is a lot of history. Even studying CISSP. There you go.
There you go.
Analog now. Yep.
It's by one of our former guests, Wynn, and it does do a great history of the internet as we understand it.
Wynn is one of the foremost. Wynn Schwartau, been doing this for many decades. He is one of the foremost historians. So for those who are not following Wynn, you should, because yes, we do see these patterns, the trends, and we should be learning from it rather than thinking, oh, AI, it's all this brand new rainbow colored unicorn. Not really. It comes back to fundamentals. It's the same Salters and Schroeder's design principles from 1974, which we're now pulling back, modified slightly, but still very much apply. So for those who are learning or just growing your knowledge, stay grounded with those fundamentals.
Yeah, that's great advice. I love that. That's awesome. And now I have another book to buy. I have so many books. And like, this is never enough time, right? I know that there's like a word for someone who buys books and like just buys them and never actually gets to read them. I try, but now I have another one, Josh. I'll need that one the name sent to me.
So if I can give a shout out for those who are wondering, what should I read in cybersecurity? Friends of mine at the Cyber Canon, cybercanon.org, they curate, they review books. Rick Howard, Helen Patton, Ben Rothke have been doing it for a long time, and many, many others. They have some super smart people, and they have their book Hall of Fame. So use that as a resource just to figure out, what should I be reading?
Oh, I love that.
I'm like, I love Cyber Canon. I'm just upset with them because my book's still not in the canon yet.
I'll just have to get it and review it and put it out there. I was a reviewer for them for a while. I had to give it up because of life, but may have more time in this next segment of life. So yeah, that's another good resource. Again, reaching out to your local community. There are a lot of free resources that a lot of folks don't realize are available. And we just need to get the word out about them.
Yeah, I think that's really important too, because I always hear people talk about like the gatekeeping that we do in this. And I do agree. I mean, besides the hiring gatekeeping, which Josh and I have talked about over and over again, but also with like the training, I don't understand why people have to spend $8,000 to $10,000 on a training course. Like, I think that's absurd. And a bunch of other adjectives. So I think the free resources, having that known is really important. So for folks that are moving into the field, having a career change, or who are in the field and just want to learn more, like, please use them.
Together we can help, again, solve these challenges, help others. What I've learned by helping others, it helps me grow. And that's why I'm passionate as a teacher, as a military veteran, keep building the community. And I appreciate what you're doing as well and having me as a guest. This is fun. And I have not heard too many, unpopular opinions at this point.
We're on our best behavior today, Josh. I'm very surprised.
I mean, this is true. Although, to your point with veterans, I think growing the next generation is something that's inherent to veterans, because you're trained from that military perspective of, you have to know the job of the person above you, have to know the job of the person below you, because at any point that person could not be there for one reason or another, whether it's a combat related reason or it's just that routine PCS to the next job
or a pandemic.
Or my good friend John Lewis, who was hit by the blue haired granny who drove through the front of a restaurant. Things happen, and you have to have that up and down relationship. And on the civilian side, that's been truly not a thing that's occurred. People hoard stuff together and go, no, this is my fiefdom. I want to know this, because if I know this and I'm the only one that knows this, I'm not fireable.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then
job security.
The flip side of that is that you're also not promotable.
Yep.
No, we need that. And I'm afraid in the new, people are very, holding on to their jobs. They're, they see it as their intellectual property and they have their own concerns. So we're looking out for ourselves. Well, we need to continue to look outward again. And this is not where AI is going to solve anything. These are human problems. We need humans, real humans, to solve.
Yeah, absolutely. I know these are all topics that I think we could, like you said, Ron, we could spend like the next 3 hours talking about, because they're all so relevant and so important, and need that think tank mentality to not only spread the word, but to also solve some of these hiccups that we're seeing across the board. And I think it's great that we keep hearing them over and over again, because it means that they're not slowing down. These things are still relevant. And people are trying to solve those problems. But we are already near the end. I can't believe it. So we always end our Criticality Live episodes with a set of core questions. So the first question I would like to ask you is, if you could fix one thing about the cybersecurity industry overnight, what would it be?
So already referenced learn history. John put in the chat, why do we still see phishing email? Why does it still work? Why is ransomware still high up on the Verizon data breach report? Didn't learn history and not basic cyber hygiene fundamentals.
Yeah, couldn't agree.
All right. So for me, what's one practice? It can be technical, cultural, or a bit of both. You wish organizations would stop doing immediately because it's absolutely worthless.
What is one thing that's absolutely worthless? Well, first of all, passwords need to die. No reason why we should not be using multiple depths of telemetry for multi-factor. It's not just something you know, something you have, something you are, but something you're doing at that particular moment, what you are accessing. So fixing access control, but you really need the culture. And that's often where we see the biggest problem is it's a mindset shift for a lot of business people, because they think cyber is someone else's problem. No, it's, as Kayla, it's a risk problem. So back to basics. Sorry, it might be an unpopular opinion, but If you're not doing the basics, you can't do the hard stuff.
If it's unpopular, I share it. So
I am a connoisseur of unpopular opinions.
All right. So you're active all over the industry, pretty much everywhere. So for our listeners who'd like to reach out to you or follow your work, what's the best way for them to connect with you?
Really the best and where I'm primary is just on LinkedIn. I don't always post a whole lot. I'm one of those where if I don't really feel like I have something to add, I just won't, or I'll just repost super smart people. But I do love connecting with folks on LinkedIn. It's how I stay abreast what's happening in the world. So yeah, connect with me on LinkedIn is really the best way to do it.
All right. Before we let you go, do you have any final thoughts that you want to leave our audience on cybersecurity, leadership, building resilience for 2026 and beyond?
Another skill we see with everyone needs to continually refine is the human hacking, are those influence skills. So final thought, continue to build your human skills, because again, this is not where AI is going to help us. And we're finding folks really appreciate you being authentic. So go out, be the authentic you, take simple steps to be safe, and just join your community.
Yeah, and if you see us out anywhere, the three of us, please come say hi. We're not scary. Josh might look scary, but he's not.
Even Josh is.
All right, so that's a wrap up of Criticality Live. Thank you, Ron Woerner. And a bigger thank you to you for hanging out with us and being a part of our community of leaders who are done with the buzzwords and are ready for some real conversations. If you got value out of today's episode, hit that follow button, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and drop us a review here on LinkedIn, Spotify, or on our on-demand YouTube channel, or anywhere else where you get your podcasts. It helps us far more than you know. And of course, a huge shout out to our sponsor, Secure Nation. They're powering our conversation here today. They're helping organizations defend smarter, respond faster, and make cybersecurity something that actually works. So go check them out. This has been Criticality Live, where we cut through the noise and get to what really matters. See you next time. Thank you. Bye.
Thanks, everyone.